Good day, listeners, learners, students all over the world for our today political science online class of government, which I'll be discussing about three major inclusions as part of our introduction to government. You know, in some classes ago online, I discussed about introduction to government, and I was able to indicate some inclusions that make up the introduction to government, where I mentioned the definition of government. I also mentioned characteristics or attributes of government, and I as well mentioned the functions of government and reason why we study government. So these are preliminaries to this subject matter. Now, I've discussed about the definitions of government in my previous class, where I mentioned three major perspectives that you can view government to be. Government as an institution of a state, that is number one. Government as an art of governing, that is number two. And number three, I also mentioned government as an academic field of studies, and I've explained those three major perceptions differently. So today we shall be dealing with the characteristics or features of government. Number two is the functions or rules of government, and number three is that of the reason or importance or significance of government respectively. Now the first one is characteristics or attributes of government. You know, government as an institution of a state, which we can refer to as the machinery through which the will of the state are being formulated, expressed, and attained. They are saddled with a lot of functions, right? By the time I get there, I will explain that. But the attribute of government, number one is political power. Yes, political power is one of the major attributes of government. Now, what do you mean by political power? It is a kind of legal power or that enable an individual to exercise a legal authority. You know, as a government player or as a politician, example, president, governors, senators, etc., etc., people's representative, they have the political power, of which by the time they exercise their political authority or their political power on people, people must to agree to their term. Now, number two is that of the law. Yes, law is similar to constitution. You know, there is a case study in government called the concept of constitution. There is the body of government, right, that actually govern the etiquette of people in a community or in a state. So that is law. Law is part of the attribute of government. Now we also have personnel. Yes, personnel that has to do with the activities of formulating policies, interpreting policies, etc., etc. That is personnel. And we also mentioned revenue. Revenue is also an inclusion of the attribute of government. You know, revenue has to do with the earnings of government from different sources. So government have the right to instill tax or taxes on the people, right, in order to derive or to generate revenue from different ends. So we also have number 5 to be public support. Yes, you know, as a government identity, it is very, very mandatory for the general public to support the person or the politician. Example, as a governor, as a local government chairperson, you know, it is our duty to obey to what he or she instruct us to do. So that is public support. And we also have welfare services. Now, when we mention welfare services as one of the major attributes of government, it means that it is the duty of the government to provide welfare services for the general public, because that has been the essence of why they are elected into political offices. Am I communicating? So, but the primary aims and objectives of government is to provide safety of life, identity. It is very, very mandatory for the general public to support the person or the politician. Example, as a governor, as a local government chairperson, you know, it is our duty to obey to what he or she instruct us to do. So that is public support. And we also have welfare services. Now, when we mention welfare services as one of the major attributes of government, it means that it is the duty of the government to provide welfare services for the general public, because that has been the essence of why they are elected into political offices. Am I communicating? So, but the primary aims and objectives of government is to provide safety of life and properties, and to ensure the provisions of welfare services to the general public. So these are 5 or 6 major attributes of government, and you know that when I mention attribute, I'm referring to characteristics of government. Now we proceed to agenda number 2, which is the functions of government. Functions are also called the roles, yes, of government. What are the roles of government? Number 1 is lawmaking. Yes, it is the duty of the government to make law, and the division or the organs of government that do that is that of the legislative arms of government. Am I communicating? So they actually make law and they discuss law, but in Nigeria we practice bicameral legislature. Is that okay? So number 2 is that of maintenance of law and order. Yes, it is in capacity of the government to ensure that they maintain law and order, right? So number 3 is that of the defense to the country. It is the duty of the government. As a matter of fact, it is the primary objectives or duty of the government to ensure safety of properties and lives. So we also have number 4 to be the protection of lives and properties, which I have stated as one of the major duty or role of government. Number 5 is to administrate the judicial aspect of a country. I can say that to administrate justice, yes, justice, and that is done by the judicial arms of government. And we also have number 6 to obey the provisions of social services. Social services are services rendered to the government, not in return of money. Those services that government render to the general public. Example, free healthcare services. We also have free education, etc., etc. So those are inclusions of social services. So the construction of roads, bridges, markets, infrastructural facilities, by examples, are